Oi oi, alright, how's it going? I'm Grant, your you. This is the Doodle Review coming through now with the 4th edition of Soundbites. If music reviews were a dining experience, Soundbites would be like packing a Michelin star restaurant into a Mackey's drive-through. You know, it's the highest quality music analysis, maybe. Quickly, cheaply, on demand, and occasionally you might have to pull into the car park and wait because, like, you know, I've fallen behind or the ice cream machine's off or something like that. But basically in this series we dish out reviews quick and dirty and just keep it quick and simple. I've been overwhelmed by new music lately, and while I'm keeping up in terms of listening, maybe a few weeks behind, I'm just not finding quite as much time to go deep on every single album. So you might see a few more of these episodes over the next few weeks. I'll be doing my best to at least drop a couple full-length reviews per week, but to make sure I get to stay somewhat current with 2024 releases, I'll need to do a few roundups like these to stay afloat. The ratings here are a little bit lighter. We go bad, mid, decent, great, or next level. On the menu this week are what I'm calling underground entrees. We're talking Waxahatchee, Boeckner, Emily Wolfe, Gouge and Mannequin Pussy. Let's get it. So first up, Waxahatchee's 6th album, Tiger's Blood. Katie Crutchfield, aka Waxahatchee. She's an indie folk country singer-songwriter and an artist whose work I drift in and out of. Country's not really my go-to genre. In fact, it's probably one I'm least drawn to, but Crutchfield's unique vocal style, poised to deliver a hook at any moment in her distinct falsetto, can often negate any country tropes I might usually sneer at. St. Cloud, the artist's 2020 record, delivered a whole lot of this while leaning into more of the indie folk kind of sad girl aesthetic, making it one of my favourites of hers that I'd heard up until that point. Tiger's Blood is a bit more stripped down as a listening experience, and if you think of the Venn diagram of like country folk and indie, I'd say this one sits a little more towards that country side of things. Not necessarily a bad thing. I really got into the 2022 collaborative project Plains with her and Jess Williamson, which also sits in that realm, so I don't mind it. But I don't know whether it's because of the shift to simpler arrangements here or whether it is because I was just listening harder, but more than ever, Crutchfield's lyrics are the thing that jumped out to me. Lines like cheap wine you let in sometimes, or stupid question, I'd rather not ask it, or I make my living crying, it ain't fair. All of them resonate. I think it's so good. From a musical perspective, I just found that less songs stuck with me afterwards though. Sure, Right Back to It and Crowbar are some all-timers, but tracks like 365, The Wolves and the title track just kind of float by without making much of an impression. Sometimes because it feels like they don't know what they've got when it comes to a certain hook and don't necessarily capitalize on it enough. This one's decent. Some great tracks and some forgettable ones. If you're a Waxahatchee fan, you'll probably love it. Next one we're going to talk about is Boeckner with the album Boeckner, and I'm going to keep saying Boeckner even though I know I'm probably not saying it right, but Dan Boeckner is a singer and songwriter who made his name as the frontman of the band Wolfe Parade. He also now plays in tours with Arcade Fire, and I know him for neither of those things, especially not the second one. Gross. But I know Boeckner from this seemingly now one-off project he did with Britt Daniel of Spoon way back in 2012 called Divine Fits. That album, A Thing Called Divine Fits, was in heavy rotation for me back then. I loved the combination of Boeckner's new wave tendencies and Daniel's raw nerve indie rock. For years, I've said it's a shame that they never went back to the project, but in some ways, this Boeckner solo album titled just Boeckner, how many times can I say Boeckner, is exactly that. This record makes you realise how much the new romantic style singer really propelled a lot of the Divine Fit sound. That's probably obvious for people that followed Wolfe Parade, but I just had no idea. On this solo album, Boeckner is very much playing in the same lane, very tight, sharp drumming following frazzled bass and synth sequencers and occasional blasts of guitar, but to me, without the jagged catharsis that Spoon's Britt Daniel brought to the table, hardly any of the songs really stick. I enjoy it while it's on, but aside from tracks like Dead Tourists, Return to Life and Holy as the Night, every time I dropped the proverbial needle, it seemed like most of the songs I was hearing again just for the first time, just because they didn't make an impression. Again, I'm going to go with decent on this one. It's certainly worth a go, especially if you like Divine Fits, and if you're into new wave leaning indie rock, but then give it a try. But it's a little lacking, but at 32 minutes, it's breezy enough that you can sort of spend enough time with it, and perhaps that might just be what I need more of. Okay, we're going to go from there to Gouge Away and their album Deep Sage. This is an album that has had heaps of praise put upon it, and as a result I was dead keen to check it out, but honestly I've struggled. Gouge Away are from Florida and classified as a hardcore band, but to me, judging by Deep Sage, which is the only album I've heard from them, I'd probably put them more in the noise rock post-hardcore vibe. The tones and textures they lean towards on this thing are like Jesus Lither, Shellac and Fugazi more than straight up hardcore. And on paper that's a win for me. I'm all about that little melting pot of genres and seem to be finding myself falling more and more into that world as time goes on. However, this record, taken in its entirety, I just find very one note, grating and a little flat. For a band that's a 5-piece with 2 guitarists, neither of which have to worry about singing and playing aside from the odd backing vocals, I just don't hear a huge amount of dynamics at play. And as we get past the midpoint of the record, the almost monotone atmosphere and surprisingly mid-paced songs, I just find them a bit of a chore. I'm very much in the minority with this opinion. People seem to be loving the record, and that's okay. I'll submit and take some damage to the punk HP instead of, you know, pretending I'm on board just for the sake of it. I do enjoy the bangers though. Maybe Blue, which is a great track with a killer lead guitar hook, and The Sharpening, which actually builds to a furious climax, which also highlights maybe one of my complaints, that I don't actually feel there are many level up climaxes here. But credit where credit's due to Christina Michelle, who's a charismatic vocalist with great energy and delivery, and also Thomas Cantwell's drums are absolutely pummeling throughout. To me, controversially, it's mid, but I'm just not as cool as everyone else that digs it, I guess. We're next going to talk about Emily Wolfe and The Blowback. This is a bit of a catch-up review for me. The Blowback is singer-songwriter Emily Wolfe's 3rd album that dropped somewhere in the second half of last year. When I heard that I missed it, I immediately jumped to correct myself because I absolutely loved her 2021 record Outlier. What caught my attention at that time was finding that the record had been produced by Michael Schumann of Queens of the Stone Age, and then being pleased to find the album therefore carrying a lot of his kind of mini mansions traits as a songwriter. I then after that fell for the spit in your eye defiance of Wolfe, seething under the surface of songs like No Man and Death Row Kiss, alongside massive hooks and memorable melodies like LANY and Cover of Virtue. The Blowback carries over many of these traits. It hits you over the head with big hooks immediately, with Silencer, Dead End Luck, Walk in My Shoes. However, there is definitely a noted change in production aesthetic to my ears. I feel like there's quite a lot of reverb, which on one hand aids in delivering a kind of more of a hazy 90s grunge sound, but on the other it kind of pumps air into that otherwise tight, hermetically sealed, tightly wound riffy sound carried over from Outlier. These two sensibilities I think work against each other sometimes and slightly lessen what could be the big climaxes we have here. Sequencing wise, I also find that after the mid-album riff freak out of Road to Ruin, the album falls into a lull of slow songs that lack the punchy hooks we've become accustomed to. With that being said, we do get another standout toward the end, The Suicide Contemplating Second of Relief, that has deeply hard-hitting lyrics. Again, this one's decent, but I wholeheartedly recommend Emily Wolfe as a rock singer-songwriter in general. If you haven't heard of her before, get into some of the tracks that I mentioned and check out Outlier, the previous album, for sure. Don't miss out on that. We're going to round things out with Mannequin Pussy, I Got Heaven. Mannequin Pussy are a band I've enjoyed for a long time, particularly their 2016 record Romantic and the 2019 entry into their catalogue Patience. They've always had a jangly kind of sensibility to their brand of punk, even as far back as Romantic, but over the years they've definitely broadened and expanded that softer side of things. This year with I Got Heaven, they've gone even further into that side of themselves with an album that dips more than a couple of toes into that early 90s dream pop shoegaze aesthetic. Some tracks even go all in on the dream pop. I Don't Know You is one of the softest here. It almost sounds like a mid-2000s indie acoustic track in a very kitsch kind of way, which isn't really my thing, but it's got a great melody, a nice bouncy rhythm, some subtle keys on the chorus, and then a slow build towards distortion that I really love. For the old school fans, there are as well songs that go completely in the other direction. The band's aggro punk mode, like Okay, 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 or Of Her. These rages on the back half sound like the band have been kind of charging up on the front half of the record to release these things. The majority of the other tracks appear to sit somewhere in the middle, conjuring a 90s grunge vibe by blending these two extreme colours on the palette. I Got Heaven, the title track, is a particular highlight in this regard. The aggressive chorus and the sweet verse play off each other really well, and this is mostly true of the others, but I do find a couple of moments where things drag. Nothing Like, for instance. Overall, while the punk stuff has me craving a band still fully in that vein, I can't deny that Mannequin Pussy pull off their softer genre explorations pretty well. I'd say this one's great. Alright, that's it for me. For now, I'm going to knock it on the head. Let me know in the comments if you've heard any of these and what your thoughts are. Take a look in the description for any related reviews. And if you can be asked to do all that, subscribe, stick around, share some thoughts, wholesome abuse in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, mate. Bye.